The Mitchell-Oldenburg situation at the Indianapolis 2 Supercross was a strange one that confused a lot of people, including us, so we wanted to run through some things that we gathered post-race to try to explain it all. We have the AMA making a few odd decisions, none of which come from the rulebook. We have some rules that do apply. We have Oldenburg starting the main event without actually racing the LCQ. We have Bobby Piazza upset, and a whole bunch of stuff, so let's get into it. First, the sequence of events. It all started in the heat race when Mitchell Oldenburg's bike locks up while running second, and he has a big crash. Somehow, he escaped this crash without serious injury of any kind, so he'll be back for the last chance qualifier. Meanwhile, the Muc-Off Honda crew works furiously to replace Oldenburg's engine in roughly 45 minutes to get him back to the gate for the LCQ. He goes through staging and gets ready to line up before being pulled back by an AMA official, and then he and the team argue with the AMA behind the starting line for the LCQ, which eventually Oldenburg does not start. Meanwhile, Jett Lawrence has had an awful day filled with crashes, one of which resulted in a shoulder injury in his heat race, so he races the LCQ and wins. When lining up for the main event, he ultimately makes the decision not to race due to the pain, and Mitchell Oldenburg suddenly is rolling into his gate to race the main event. As it turns out, the AMA believed Oldenburg's crew could not have changed the engine in time, and when he went through staging, they ran his frame number and didn't have it on record. So they had pulled him off believing he was using a second bike, which was illegal. According to what Muc-Off Honda told our Steve Mathis, they had teched a new bike at Indy 1 with the new frame and said that the AMA never wrote that number down. So it was their mistake, and they took an AMA member back to their pits to show the blown-up engine dismantled as proof it was still the same bike. The AMA apparently felt so bad about blowing the initial call that they were then going to allow Oldenburg to start with 23rd gate pick on the back row in the main event. When Lawrence pulled off the gate, Oldenburg then moved forward to take his position. Now, here are a couple of rules that apply. First off, we have Rule 4.8a, which says riders must use the same motorcycle, same mainframe for qualifying and the main program. We also have Rule 4.14e, which says more than one motorcycle per class may be presented and passed through the initial technical inspection, provided frame numbers are properly recorded, indicating race motorcycles and practice motorcycles. Motorcycles used for time qualifying are considered race motorcycles and must be used for the rest of the meet. So teams can tech multiple bikes, but once you qualify on one bike, you must remain on that frame, omitting rare circumstances where the frame is damaged. Muc-Off Honda was able to prove that this was still the correct frame, and the AMA had made the wrong call initially. So then, why does Oldenburg get the freebie to the main event? Well, that was just the AMA trying to correct their error. There is no rule about this, but the AMA felt they cost Oldenburg a fair chance at the main event and granted him 23rd gate pick. But why doesn't the man who finished 5th in the LCQ get Jett Lawrence's spot then? Well, that is also somewhat confusing. Bobby Piazza finished 5th in the LCQ and said the following: "I asked if you guys took any alternates twice and you said no and stimped my transponder. I rode my heart out dead last to 5th and that's what I get." Technically, again, there is no rule for the standard race format that explicitly outlines whether alternates can or cannot be granted access to the main events from the LCQ. The only rule that exists for alternates is in Triple Crown formats, where the following occurs. Quote, if a rider or riders have qualified for the races but are unable to participate in the race, an alternate rider that qualified outside of the top 4 in the last chance qualifier may be allowed into the first race only. This will be done starting with the 5th place rider from the last chance qualifier until all positions for the evening program are filled. So again, that is only for Triple Crown races, which Indy 2 was not. Therefore, with no actual rule to explain this, the AMA told Piazza no alternates would be added. So there you have it. Oldenburg was allowed in as the AMA wanted to fix their mistake, and there was no relation whatsoever to Jett Lawrence electing not to race. Lawrence pulling out only freed up a front row gate for Oldenburg to occupy. A very strange set of circumstances, with certainly many more questions still to come regarding this situation. Anyway, Oldenburg had another mechanical in the main event, making this whole situation more ridiculous, and eventually pulled out of the race. That's all for this edition of RacerX Rapid News, presented by Fly Racing. Be sure to visit racerxonline.com for all the latest Supercross news.